Okay, hey guys. Yeah, new little setup, but tonight I want to talk a little bit about culture again. It's a little bit more than culture, and some of these are talking points that I got from responding to comments on another one of my videos, and I want to start by saying this. Um I haven't actually come across like in my personal life. I know that I've seen the comments online, so I definitely know that it exists. Like there are members of the Black American community, the Black community, who want to like push other people who are not a part of the community into the community. And so they're like calling people who like don't identify as black and mislabeling people and all of that sort of stuff. And I don't agree with that. I don't think that that's a good idea. I don't think that that's useful. Now, on the other hand, there are a lot of people, like, I don't know why no one talks about this, because I feel like in general, we have this idea that like no one wants to be black. Like it's so awful to be black. And I think one of the reasons why it's so powerful to have Black women specifically creating their own identities and spaces is so that you can kind of see like a lot of us are trying to build off of Zora Neale Hurston or other like authors who have created quite a lot of space and ways of meaningful living already. Like they've done so much work, especially in terms of America, to make it so that like our lives are meaningful, and it is not something that has to translate to other groups. So if like you don't identify as a Black woman, then maybe that work wasn't for you, and that's totally fine. There becomes like certain weird things though, where like that work it was like a very specific work, that was done for very particular reasons, and then other people are now coming and being like, this work is actually really meaningful, and now I want to participate in it. I want to like co-opt it. I want to take it for my own and now introduce this to my own culture. And those same people at the same time are saying, yes, I also I don't have any respect for this culture that I'm stealing. Like I don't identify with it. I am other, I am different. And it's like I think Zoe Saldana is a very good example here. Like I personally do think that she identifies as like a Latin American woman. I think most of the discourse around her has come from taking on that role of Nina Simone and doing blackface, which was just strange and disrespectful. And, honestly, that was probably a role for her own career and just respect for like, really for herself and for the craft. It probably would have been best to turn it down. But, I don't know, some people just respect the story a lot, and they think that acting is just kind of like they really just see themselves as like actors and not people. So, and they don't understand like culture, so they're just like, oh, this is a gig and I like the gig. It's like I have a lot of respect for like Elon Musk in some ways, or Sam Altman, but I wouldn't try out for the role even if I was like really good, because I'm like, well, I'm female, also like black, and like there's just all these cultural things that about the character, and it's like, yeah, like that wouldn't really work. It's kind of like the people who are having the criticisms about Star Wars and them making it really like gay right now. Like I'm actually here for the conversation. I think that the work is causing a lot of necessary discourse, but also I think that it's a really positive thing, because younger generations who are seeing those films are going to have to talk very critically about the characters who are now like multidimensional and humanize them in order to even talk about the character representations of them. And that is a very powerful thing and is pushing forward the humanity of the LGBTQIA community, and I think that's a positive thing. Now, for me personally as an individual, I don't feel like I've ever had a point where I saw like people from that community as less than human. So this isn't like a learning curve that I personally have to go through, but just given like experiences that I personally have heard of, and just kind of understanding how other people in society move, like, nah, like there's probably a real need for it. Like we have some bigots out here, so we really do need people to just have serious conversations that like initially humanize someone and then go further than that. But I let's go back for a second about this thing of like culture and really how can you say this, like if you're saying, if you can go as far as to say like I am not a member of a particular culture, race, group, identity, whatever it is, that's fine. You might want to go a little bit further to make the distinctions of how your cultural identity is so different, especially if like another person who's able to like, you know, ration and reason is making a certain like assumption about you. They're saying that, oh, you, there's some sort of similarities between you and that culture. And I think there's a whole other conversation to be had around like stereotypes, wanting, and delusion. Because like one thing I've heard over and over, and especially just as a person who's been like multi-generationally, like half of my family has been like multi-generationally in America, and like race is a really big topic. But for the most part, it's white and black, and I will say that there's not much room for like the other groups, sort of like multiracial, multicultural identities. Even I'm saying that even as a person who grew up in like California, there's this like big idea that like fruits and vegetables or something and certain like meals and dishes are a part of cultural identity, which sure they are, but like anyone can eat rice, tomatoes, and chips, corn. Those are things that are like grown all over the world. So I don't, it's very difficult to start to classify plants as a part of like ethnic culture. I think that that's strange, though I do understand if there's like a particular dish with a name and you've been making that dish in your little family group for like 5 years or 100 years, whatever it is. I get it, like that's a special thing to you. But also like I've been eating tortilla chips for 15 years and I'm not gonna make that a part of my like ethnicity in any ways. Like I fucking like tortilla chips, so boom, there it is. Also like smoothies and hoagies. So I don't, it's really, really strange. But wait, let's keep going because I had a point there. So I think in a lot of other parts of the world, it's been so, people have been so clearly like racially classified in terms of like color. And so when we're making these really like specific broad distinctions that are saying like, hey, the darker you are, the poorer you are, the worse off your life is going to be. The lighter you are, the redder you are, the better off your life is going to be. Those broad generalizations, especially all around the developing world, have been pretty accurate for a very long time. The problem is in America specifically, and in a lot of parts of the, not in a lot of parts, but in some parts of the UK, that doesn't really hold because there are just so many ways that people have garnered wealth. And so people who are extremely wealthy and privileged, they look very different ways. And then there's this like very American concept of the upper middle class, which is actually extremely multicultural, very global, and very like ethnically diverse. And many people are not, like, you have to already be extremely privileged to be privy to those spaces. So I appreciate movies like The Hunger Games that just unpack class in this way that I think a lot of people haven't really been able to explore before, where there are characters who are black, there are characters who are white, there are characters who are darker skin or lighter skin and have a wide range of like features where it's like, oh, okay, so this person actually does like this and they do this, and it's just not the norm. And that's actually really important because people from the developing world, they need like pictures, not words, like almost like infographic descriptors to like explain really basic shit. And that's weird. Like that's something I had to learn that kind of firsthand. Like you can't just be like, oh yeah, you'd have to go talk, you know how you say like, go treat people the way you wanted to be treated and look at their character and their story. They can't really go as far as that because like they don't have the context or the ability to critically think in those ways. Like maybe we can. So that's why we have to like get online and make these fucking videos that like literally link a million articles about things, other people who've talked about it, discussion groups, booktube channels, and all type of shit like that, because people are really dumb. They're like really, really dumb. And the longer that you live in the world, you will realize that it can be frustrating as fuck. Like reading some of my comments, it's like frustrating as fuck. So what does this have to do? Let's go back to this conversation around like culture. What does this have to do with culture? So this has to do with culture. Basically, what I'm trying to say is like Black American women specifically. I'm actually going to leave Black American men out because I feel like they have their own very specific journey. I'm actually going to make a video that I probably publish a little bit soon after I publish this one that kind of unpacks some of the issues there. But excuse me. Black American women have been sort of like modern and have had access to bills and money for a while. This isn't like a new thing. And so they've been sort of feminisming for a while, kind of out of necessity. And I feel like in the last maybe 20 years, we have seen women from all different groups, racial and ethnic groups, do a very similar thing, which has caused like this idea of like women empowerment where women are just buying shit, taking a part in the economy, and they don't have like there is not really this necessary thing to be to be chosen by a male to be taken care of in a very substantial way and to live a life which it is enviable from people all around the world. That is the literal situation we have right now. People watching my channel do wish that they were living my life, and they're not. Like, I am living my life. I've made other videos explaining how you can do it, but for one reason or maybe a million, right? Like, some people live in different parts of the world. They don't have the ability to come to America. Maybe they can't get a work permit. Whatever the situation is, not everyone can be me, right? And so some parts of that are like there are these privileges in terms of like American society that Black women specifically have like worked toward incrementally to be able to access privileges and freedoms that we have like access to now. And that's taken a very long time, and a part of that work has enabled other groups to gain access to those privileges as well. But the weird part about it is like Black women specifically, and I'm being very specific when I say I'm not including males, but they have included in their culture and history like how we got to these steps. And the one thing that really bugs me about like Africans who come to America is they just really gaslight and brush over all of those aspects of history that Black women specifically have worked toward to enable really all women of color to have access to shit. And so it is extremely frustrating when women of color, specifically women who like, I think that sometimes in America and really in a lot of parts of the world, especially Latin, this is really frustrating. There are people who are literally not white and they just consider themselves white because they are not Black, because in Latin they basically see white and Black, and then mestizo, or kind of colored, but a spectrum of colored. So there's like white, Black, and then like colored is in the middle, and those are the three things, right? But let's say like if white is over here, and then like very close to white is like here, here in America, that is not. That's why we have certain terms like WASPs, like kind of almost like Nazism in a sense, where people are talking about like Anglo-Saxons, like from very particular places in Europe, where it's like, it's white. It's not like, it isn't colored, it isn't Hispanic, it's not other, it's not even Spanish speaking. It's like very English, very European, very British, you know what I mean? There's quite a difference there. It's kind of like the way I like to describe it is the difference between Taylor Swift and Rosalia. And I feel like all over Latam, people think that those people are the same, those cultures are similar, and those people are worlds apart, because I feel like in my lived experience, I've grown up with the people who are a little bit more Taylor Swift than Rosalia, and I did not grow up with people who are like Rosalia, but I've learned about them because a lot of them have immigrated here. So I've learned about kind of their culture and their traditions, and they see themselves as more Taylor Swift, and we see them as Rosalias, right? They're different. There's like the difference between them is broad and wide, and it's like very far. Or people who see like the Bad Bunnies is like something that is not very specifically like Hispanic, whatever the fuck that means. Um, it's really kind of strange. But at the same time, this is going back to where, like, none of those people that I just mentioned have anything to do with Black women. And we also exist, occupy space, and Sexy Red is not our representative. Nor is, like, Rihanna or Beyonce, right? Like, every Black woman has a story and has her own place in history, specifically, like, Black American women who are American girls and probably also have some sort of like tie and story related back to Africa, or it could even be to some part of like Latin America or maybe the Caribbean. Like, who really knows like where a Black woman's story starts? I don't know. Every person is different. You'd have to like talk to that woman and determine her lineage and story for yourself. And some people, especially around like Latin America, because of the inability for so many people to have access to like quality public education, like primary and secondary education, they don't actually know this history at all. And so we know their history, and we could be like, ooh, like colonialism, and we'll say all these things about like racism, and they fucking don't know. And so they're saying all these things that are like anti-Black, and at the same time the entire world sees them as like Black women. And I don't see other Black women pushing these terms on them. And so I want to say that like from myself, like I am not forcing anyone, not Tyla, not any person in the Latin American group or any other part of the world to identify as Black who doesn't identify as Black. I don't know their story. Maybe they could be like literally an Indian from India. They could be a Native American person. There's a lot of different, like brown comes in a lot of different shades, and there's a lot of different stories. And who the fuck am I to be over here telling you your story? That's not my place. I don't fucking know. I'm not you. You're you, right? But it's really sad when people keep saying like Black Americans, blah, blah, blah. Like the Breakfast Club is also not an adequate representative of Black American women. Black American women have always spoken for Black American women. Maybe in the description box, I will put some like classic talks of like Black American historians, activists who have spoken about issues that are very specific to Black American women. And I do think there's a lot of other women of color and just women in general who have listened and heard these women talk, like the Angela Davises of the world, and have been inspired, have collaborated with. And so there's like this female sort of unity, this like umbrella of feminism that is happening where female issues across the globe are being like identified and spoken about. That's a real thing. So I don't think that that's like Black women specifically trying to pull women into the group, but I would say that in the developing world, many of the female activists or just females with voices are taking talking points and have studied and worked with or are inspired by Black American female activists who've done the same work in the past. So if anything, I think it would be really important for them to respect the history, like put some respect on our name sort of thing. Like if you're literally doing the same, like copying the same thing that we've done, trotting paths that we have built, like the thing about Tyla that I think is really disrespectful, and really the South Africans in general, like the Breakfast Club is a platform that like, I don't know how to describe this group of Black men, but it's a very male-centered, hip-hop cultured space. Like it's a very like Black American male space where they talk about shit. There's like one Black woman on the show, but really like I think she's just a prop at this point. Like that space is like Charlemagne and DJ Envy over there talking about shit that is related to them. That like I don't subscribe to the Breakfast Club, and I am also a Black American, so please stop saying all Black Americans feel like they do. We don't. Like they feel that way, and they said what they said on that platform. That's like, this is my channel, this is my platform, and here's what I'm saying. So please don't clump me up with them. Like I am not them. They are them, and it's not a bad thing, but like also like I am not them. This is my platform, and if you'd like, I can give you some recommendations for a whole bunch of other like Black American women who have channels and perspectives and things that they are talking about that just have fucking, first of all, nothing to do with the Breakfast Club, nothing to do with like wanting to be Hispanic or so, or trying to pull people into our group who are not members of the group. Like, I don't, that's a very strange talking point. Like, I don't know. I've never seen this. I'm so sorry, but like in my real life, I don't know if I've ever come across a Black woman who was like telling somebody else like, you're Black. Like, I definitely have heard it online, but like I've definitely had Black women, you know, ask questions. Oh, you're Black. Are you Black? Like, are you, you know, like, are you? Can you describe to me like what you are? Which is a curious question. It's very, or people just assuming like, oh, okay, I think you're Black, and yes, you know, like things like that. But it definitely isn't like other people trying to push identities on people who don't declassify like that. And especially, here's the other thing too, like imagine if I was to go like do a bunch of salsa, like, not to say Kiana Naomi is kind of a culture vulture, but she is actually trotting all through like Latin America and like salsa dancing and learning Spanish and all this shit. And I'm not sure, like, so maybe y'all should go have conversations with her about what cultural appropriation, or if you feel that way. I don't even think you do. I mean, because honestly, like a lot of people from LATAM are coming to America, doing a whole bunch of American things, singing Taylor Swift songs, shopping at American Apparel, and speaking English, but nobody's calling that cultural appropriation. So, like, we want to talk about like what culture is, especially like if you were rocking like headphones, listening to hip hop, and wearing sneakers as a girl. All of that is like directly attributed to like Black American people. All of that is like urban culture created by Black women in America. So that's a thing. And like I said before, just put some respect on the name, because I don't think. And like another thing, especially when we're talking about like pop culture, why are we pretending like we don't have like a bunch of like not a few, like a bunch of like Black American women who've come before and who have like told very interesting stories that are about like life and about like things that we care about, and they kind of look all different, and some even like UK, like European or from the developed world, who've told these very complex stories, and you guys are sitting here pretending like we haven't, like we just got here and we want everybody to be us. But it's like, it really feels like all of you guys are trying to be us, not the other way around. I think that's weird, but that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that.